Rodman, the 1996 trade that sent Dennis Rodman from San Antonio to Chicago, stunned the league. At the time, Rodman was seen as unmanageably ejected 6 times in the prior season and fined more than $68,000 for technicals. His arrival to join Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen felt like an experiment in chaos. Chicago's front office calculated the risk. In his last full season, Rodman averaged 16.8 rebounds per game, a figure unmatched into decades. The gamble paid off immediately. Chicago's defensive rating climbed to first in the league, and Rodman's rebounding average rose again to 18.7. By 1997, his reputation as a disruptive force persisted, and so did the fines over $100. In that season alone. Yet Rodman's impact on the floor was measurable and unmatched. He led the league in rebounding for the 5th straight year and became the emotional pivot of a 69-13 team. His mid-season Vegas trips drew headlines, but his playoff performance silenced them. 19 rebounds in Game 2 of the finals against Utah, several of them over Karl Malone. Chicago crowds that once called him a villain now stood and applauded. The conversion was complete. The league's most divisive player had become one of its most beloved. Rodman's transformation defined the Bulls' second three-peat and altered how teams viewed eccentricity as a trade-off for dominance. His ability to weaponize chaos set a precedent for managing difficult stars in the modern NBA. The success of that gamble would inspire future front offices to bet on redemption projects, leading directly into the next case. META Ron Artest, the 2000 for Brawl, known as the Malice at the Palace, redefined Ron Artest's career. His involvement leaping into the stands after being hit by a cup led to an 86-game suspension, the longest for an on-court incident in NBA history. Public reaction was immediate and harsh. Artest was labeled the league's most dangerous player. Indiana's season collapsed, and his reputation followed. Over the next few years, he bounced through Sacramento and Houston, averaging solid defensive numbers, but carrying the stigma of volatility. Teams saw him as a risk, not a leader. By 2009, the Lakers, fresh off a finals loss, signed him in a move that puzzled analysts. Yet Artest adapted within Phil Jackson's triangle offense, lowering his shot attempts and ranking among the league's top defenders. In opponent field goal percentage, the gamble peaked in Game 7 of the 2010 NBA Finals. Artest scored 20 points against Boston, including a crucial 3 with 1 minute remaining. His post-game line, "My psychiatrist deserves this ring," captured the public's attention as much as the win itself. It was a rare admission of vulnerability in a sport that rewards toughness. Rebranding himself legally as Meta World Peace in 2011, Artest completed one of the league's most improbable transformations. He became a mentor, charity advocate, and cult favorite in Los Angeles. The same player once vilified for chaos now symbolized redemption and self-control. His story reframed how fans understood volatility not as a flaw, but as something that could evolve. That shift in perception opened the door for later players seeking second chances. Under a brighter spotlight, KOBE. In 2005, Kobe Bryant is booed during his All-Star Game introduction in Denver. The tension from his public feud with Shaquille O'Neal, once his partner in 3 championships, turns into open hostility from fans and media alike. Headlines call him selfish and impossible to coach, and columnists describe him as the face of ego in a collapsing Lakers dynasty. That season, Los Angeles misses the playoffs for the first time since 1994. Bryant averages 27.6 points per game, but is framed as a scorer who can elevate teammates. His reputation sinks even as his skill set widens. Then, on January 22, 2006, the narrative flips in a single night. Against Toronto, Kobe scores 81 points, the second highest total in NBA history on 28 for 46 shooting. The performance is surgical. 55 of those points come in the second half alone, and the Lakers win 122-100 for after trailing early. Overnight, the ball hog label becomes a symbol of determination. Fans rewatch the footage and reconsider what obsession can accomplish when fully weaponized. That game turns disdain into respect, and the league never views him the same again. By 2016, Bryant's farewell season feels like national catharsis. Every arena he once antagonized gives him a standing ovation. His final game against Utah draws over 3.5 million viewers on ESPN to a record for a non-playoff broadcast, and ends with 60 points on 50 shot attempts. The moment crystallizes his arc. Once jeered, now immortal. His journey from isolation to adoration becomes the league's most complete redemption story, setting the standard for how legacies can evolve long after the booze fade. LeBron in July 2010, LeBron James broadcast the decision live on ESPN, announcing he will leave Cleveland for Miami. The fallout is immediate and severe. Fans burn jerseys, downtown businesses will remove his posters, and Cavaliers owner Dan Gilbert publishes an open letter condemning him. LeBron's quote at his Miami introduction, "Not one, not two, not three," is replayed endlessly as proof of arrogance. Public sentiment turns, and his first season with the Heat becomes theater for resentment. Ratings surge, but so do boos in every arena. Across from Miami seasons, he wins to MVPs and to championships. Yet criticism follows every title. The public still views his move as an orchestrated shortcut, not an earned climb. But when he returns to Cleveland in 2014, the tone shifts. He writes in Sports Illustrated that his relationship with Northeast Ohio is bigger than basketball, and the city cautiously welcomes him back. By 2016, that decision, the second one, sets the stage for one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. Down 3-1 to the 73-win Warriors in the 2016 finals, LeBron averages 29.7 points, 11.3 rebounds, and 8.9 assists over 7 games. His chase down block on Andre Iguodala, with 1:50 left in Game 7, becomes the symbol of Cleveland's endurance. When Kyrie Irving's three seals the 93-89 win, LeBron collapses in half-court in tears. The city erupts after a 52-year title drought. On the parade stage, he ends the redemption arc with a single line, "Cleveland, this is for you," turning the league's most vilified star into its most forgiven. Dillon Brooks in the 2023 NBA playoffs, Dillon Brooks becomes the league's most polarizing headline. After calling LeBron James old and claiming he only respects players who drop 40, Brooks shoots just 31% from the field as Memphis collapses in 6 games. The Grizzlies issue a blunt post-series statement he will not be brought back under any circumstances. Within days, the internet turns his bravado into a meme factory. Search trends spike for LeBron's stopper, but every clip ends with a loss. By July, Brooks signs with Houston, a roster far removed from contention. Analysts label him an unrepentant agitator whose defense masks a broken shot selection. But then, in the 2023 FIBA World Cup, he produces the single most efficient scoring night of his career, 39 points on 12-for-18 shooting as Canada beats Team USA for bronze. Fans chant MVP as he waves to the crowd, an image that spreads faster than any Grizzlies lowlight. The international spotlight reframes him. Brooks' defense anchors Canada's medal run, and his composure silences months of mockery. He finishes the tournament shooting 59% from 3, erasing the villain tag that followed him out of Memphis. When the NBA season begins again, broadcasts replay that FIBA performance. Before every introduction, the man once booed out of Tennessee walks into Houston to applause. Joakim Noah in 2010, during the height of LeBron James' first run with Cleveland. Joakim Noah made headlines not for a stat line, but for a soundbite, "Cleveland sucks." The remark branded him an instant villain across Ohio, and the boos followed him to every arena thereafter. Yet Noah's reputation wasn't built on scoring or flair. It was anchored in endurance, defense, and vocal leadership. Across 80 games that season, he averaged 11.0 points, 11.0 rebounds, and 1.6 blocks, anchoring Chicago's defense with relentless energy and unapologetic emotion. Every possession felt personal. He was never the most skilled, but often the most visible. By 2014, that relentless intensity reached its peak. Noah captured the NBA's Defensive Player of the Year award, becoming the first center in Bulls history since Michael Jordan's era to win a major individual trophy. Chicago fans chanted Noah, Noah, as he posted 12.6 points, 11.3 rebounds, and 5.4 assists per game, numbers unmatched by any big man that season. His hair flew, his grin widened, and his hustle became both meme and symbol. Once booed for his mouth, he became beloved for his motor. Noah's arc from noisy antagonist to league-wide energy ambassador mirrored the Bulls' own resurgence in the early 2010s. His defense and personality reshaped what leadership without scoring looked like. The same player who mocked Cleveland ended up embodying the league's best example of controlled chaos. That energy set the tone for another player once written off as allowed for his own good, Dillon Brooks. Matt Barnes in March 2010. Matt Barnes, then with the Orlando Magic, faked a ball throw directly at Kobe Bryant's face. Bryant didn't flinch, and the moment instantly defined Barnes' public image. Analysts labeled him a dirty player, and the league treated him as a journeyman cycling through 8 franchises across 14 seasons. His role rarely extended beyond defensive intensity and provocation, averaging just 8.2 points and 4.6 rebounds for his career. But Barnes built a reputation for consistency, reliable effort, physical defense, and a willingness to guard the league's best wings without complaint. His edge was both his weapon and his cage. By 2016, that persistence finally paid off. After years of one-year deals and limited roles, Barnes joined the Golden State Warriors during their historic 67-15 campaign. Though his minutes were limited, he became part of a roster that captured the NBA championship, earning a long-awaited ring after over 900 career games. Teammates praised his professionalism and adaptability, and the villain label faded into quiet respect. His image shifted from agitator to survivor, player who outlasted the narrative. Post-retirement, Barnes built a second career few expected. As co-host of the All the Smoke podcast, he transitioned seamlessly from the hardwood to the media world, earning recognition for his insight and candor. He asked sharp questions, gave space for honesty, and earned praise for articulating a modern player's perspective better than most analysts. From fake ball thrower to respected voice, Barnes became proof that reinvention in basketball isn't just possible, it can be permanent. The same kind of transformation that later defined Joakim Noah's journey from league irritant to emotional leader. Rasheed Wallace. Across 16 NBA seasons, Rasheed Wallace recorded 317 technical fouls, the most in league history. His temper became legend, shouting at referees, arguing calls, walking the line between passion and ejection. Coaches called him uncoachable. Opponents called him unstable. Yet, Wallace's production was undeniable. Career averages of 14.4 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 1.3 blocks built on length, mobility, and a textbook mid-range release. The phrase "ball don't lie," first shouted after a missed free throw in 2002, became his trademark, a defiant declaration that the game itself would judge fairness better than officials ever could. He wasn't wrong often. By 2004, Wallace's narrative flipped. Traded midseason to Detroit, he joined a Pistons roster built on defense, communication, and balance. His arrival transformed the team's identity, with him anchoring rotations. The Pistons held opponents to just 84.3 points per game, the lowest in a decade. Detroit beat the heavily favored Lakers for 2-1 in the NBA Finals, and Wallace's defensive command neutralized the post threats that defined early 2000s basketball. Fans who once booed him began chanting his name, first as mockery, then as respect. Wallace retired in 2013, but his legend only grew. The NBA eventually softened its image of him, promoting his coaching roles and using his catchphrase in official highlight reels. His reputation, once defined by rebellion, evolved into authenticity, a reminder that not every great leader wears composure as armor. His defiance laid the groundwork for the next generation of emotional leaders, from Draymond Green to Marcus Smart, who carried the same fire under new rules and new scrutiny. Jimmy Butler. In 2015, Chicago labeled Jimmy Butler a problem after averaging 20 points per game and earning his first All-Star selection. Butler criticized teammates for lacking effort, triggering headlines that branded him a locker room cancer. The Bulls traded him to Minnesota in 2017, where the story repeated. His intense practice challenged beating starters with bench players leaked publicly, and deepened his image as divisive. Yet, the outbursts masked intent. Butler demanded accountability from rosters that didn't share his work. He never apologized for expecting effort. Philadelphia came next, and by 2019, the pattern continued. Butler's leadership clashed with younger stars, but his playoff production, 19.4 points, 6.0 rebounds, and 5.2 assists per game, proved indispensable. When the Sixers chose not to re-sign him, Miami offered a system that finally matched his mentality. In the 2020 NBA bubble, Butler averaged 26.2 points and 9.8 assists in the finals against the Lakers, carrying an injury-depleted roster to 6 games. His 47-minute Game 5 triple-double became a symbol of willpower over glamour. By 2023, Hemi Buckets wasn't a nickname, it was recognition. Miami's culture, built on discipline and resilience, reflected Butler's ethos exactly. His reputation shifted from volatile to essential because his results followed effort, not image. Once dismissed as uncoachable, Butler became the standard for grind-first leadership in a league obsessed with talent. The turnaround illustrated how perception bends under persistence and how a so-called bust can become the heartbeat of a franchise. Russell Westbrook's label arrived early and stuck hard: stat patter, ball hog, the guard who chased numbers over wins. For years, analysts dismissed his production as hollow despite elite metrics. In 2017, he answered statistically and emotionally, averaging 31.6 points, 10.7 rebounds, and 10.4 assists per game. Westbrook became the first player since Oscar Robertson in 1962 to average a triple-double. For a full season, he recorded 40 total, breaking Robertson's single-season record. When he accepted the MVP trophy, his tearful speech to his late friend Kelsey Bars reminded fans that the drive behind those numbers wasn't the ego, it was memory. Every rebound and assist carried personal weight. Over the following years, Westbrook's ferocity never faded, but context changed. Trades to Houston, Washington, and then Los Angeles positioned him as a journeyman rather than a franchise star. Critics pointed to declining efficiency and turnovers, while teammates continued to praise his unmatched effort and preparation. By 2023, with the Clippers, he transitioned into a stabilizing veteran anchoring bench units, defending with intensity and leading through energy rather than dominance. His 2023 playoff performance against Phoenix, despite the team's injuries, redefined his narrative once again. Once booed for taking too many shots, Westbrook earned applause for refusing to quit. The number's 198 career triple-doubles by 2024 still define him, but now they represented longevity and grit more than obsession. His evolution from misunderstood MVP to respected veteran proved that perception in the NBA can shift not through image management, but through consistency under scrutiny. The arc from stat pattern to beloved warrior wasn't written in press quotes, it was logged in box scores and minutes played. Isaiah Thomas, Detroit during the late 1980s. Isaiah Thomas led the Detroit Pistons to consecutive championships in 1989 and 1990, defining the bad boys era of physical, no-apology basketball. Standing only 6'1", he averaged 19.2 points and 9.3 assists across the title runs while captaining one of the league's most feared defensive systems. Detroit's tactics, hard fouls, psychological warfare, and relentless pace disruption earned them a villain's reputation. Thomas became the face of that identity, both as orchestrator and enforcer. His leadership unified a roster that relied on collective toughness rather than individual superstardom. The 1991 Eastern Conference Finals marked the public fracture point, when the Bulls finally swept Detroit for 2-0. Thomas and several teammates walked off without shaking hands, a decision that solidified his image as the league's ultimate antagonist. For decades, fans and media framed him through that single act, overshadowing 12 All-Star appearances and a Finals MVP. Yet as time passed, the narrative shifted. Documentaries like The Last Dance reignited debate, but also introduced younger audiences to Thomas's statistical and cultural significance. Even Jordan's fiercest rival earned overdue recognition. Today, Thomas is viewed with historical balance rather than bias. His career totals over 18,000 points and 9,000 assists place him among the most productive point guards in NBA history. What once read as arrogance now reads as competitive conviction. The league that once booed him now invites him to narrate its past. History didn't rewrite his story, it simply added context, softening the sharpest edge of the bad boy's legacy. Allen Iverson. In May 2002, Allen Iverson's press conference ran repeating the word practice over 20 times, overshadowed a Hall of Fame resume. The outburst, triggered by a reporter's question about his work ethic, became a viral shorthand for arrogance and immaturity. The NBA fined him repeatedly for uniform violations and off-court issues, including defying the league's new 2005 dress code, which many felt targeted his hip-hop identity. At 6 feet tall and 165 pounds, Iverson played with reckless disregard for size or expectation. Yet his cultural presentation drew more headlines than his performance metrics. The same authenticity that alienated league executives cemented his connection to millions of fans who saw themselves in him. By 2001, his output silenced any remaining doubts. Iverson won the MVP award, leading the league in scoring at 31.1 points per game and carrying Philadelphia to the finals. In Game 1 against the Lakers, he scored 48 points and famously stepped over Tyronn Lue, a defiant image that captured the era's entire attitude shift. That postseason cemented his role, not just as a scorer, but as a generational catalyst for style and identity in basketball culture. Every crossover, every sleeve, every cornrow rookie traced back to him. To decades later, Iverson's name stands less for controversy and more for influence. His crossovers and pull-ups reshaped guard play, while his unfiltered persona redefined athlete expression. The same league that once punished his image now celebrates it through retrospectives, fashion tributes, and player interviews citing him as inspiration. What began as rebellion evolved into authenticity, turning one of basketball's most polarizing figures into one of its most beloved, DeMarcus Cousins. By 2015, DeMarcus Cousins has become the Sacramento Kings engine, posting 27 points and 12 rebounds per night, earning an All-NBA second-team selection. Yet his production comes wrapped in volatility. Cousins leads the league in technical fouls, quarrels with referees, and feuds with coaches, including public shouting matches that define his early reputation. Sacramento cycles through 6 head coaches during his tenure, none lasting long enough to stabilize the locker room. Even so, his efficiency and rebounding remain elite. Each ejection and fine reinforces the boogie label, a player whose temper undermines his brilliance. Injury and reinvention. In 2018, an Achilles tear halts his rise. The injury costs him nearly a full season, and the Kings trade him mid-rehab, marking the end of his franchise leader era. Cousins signs with Golden State in 2019, chasing both redemption and a title, but recurring injuries to his quad and knee leave him sidelined through key playoff stretches. Still, his perseverance earns respect. Fans who once mocked his attitude now sympathize with his persisting. He appears briefly for Houston, Milwaukee, and Denver, adjusting from starter role player, averaging under 10 points per game, but maintaining veteran presence. The same intensity that once alienated teammates now inspires younger rosters. Legacy revised. Cousins never regains his 27 and 12 dominance, yet his narrative flips from problem child to tragic fighter. Fans who once viewed him as volatile begin to celebrate his resilience. His open interviews about frustration and faith reshaping his image. The league that once fined him now applauds his evolution, a man tempered by adversity. Cousins' career arc illustrates how perception in the NBA can change without another ring or stat milestone, only through humility and persistence. The fall and rise of DeMarcus Cousins close one chapter of volatility and open another of redemption, bridging to the next story of an athlete who outgrew his label. Gary Payton enters the league in 1990 as the second overall pick by Seattle, but his early years show limited offensive output, just 7.2 points per game as a rookie. Critics question whether his fiery personality hides a lack of polish, and by 1993, he leads the NBA in technical fouls rather than assists. Payton refuses to tone down his talk. He earns the nickname The Glove by locking down premier scorers with suffocating perimeter defense, holding opponents under 40% shooting in head-to-head matchups. His defensive efficiency transforms Seattle's identity, helping the Sonics reach 60 for wins in 1996 and the NBA Finals against Chicago. Even Jordan concedes he's one of the toughest defenders he's faced. Evolution and respect. Payton records 9 consecutive All-Defensive First-Team selections from 1994 to 2002 and becomes the only point guard to win Defensive Player of the Year in 1996. Yet his vocal intensity continues to divide opinion. Coaches find him regularly for confrontations, and referees tire of his running commentary. Despite that, he averages 20.4 points and 8.8 assists during his prime, proving his offense equals his defense. When Seattle declines in the early 2000s, Payton's value shifts from franchise cornerstone to journeyman veteran, moving through Milwaukee, Los Angeles, and Boston. Each stop expands his reputation. From antagonist to teacher, he mentors younger guards in film study and defensive positioning. Final reinvention in 2006. At age 37, Payton joins the Miami Heat under Pat Riley and finally secures his first championship. Bill Laimbeer. Bill Laimbeer's career begins in 1979 as a late second-round pick by Cleveland, an unremarkable big man averaging just a point to points in limited minutes. By 1982, he joins Detroit and becomes the face of the league's most polarizing identity, the Bad Boys. Pistons. Standing 6 feet 11 and weighing 145 pounds, Laimbeer perfects physicality as a tactic, recording multiple flagrant fouls and leading the NBA in personal fouls twice. His elbows in the 1989 Finals against the Lakers define his reputation as the league's primary villain. Crowds boo him in every arena, but his defense and rebounding drive Detroit to consecutive titles in 1989 and 1990. He doesn't mind the hate, it fuels him. Laimbeer never apologizes for his style, stating publicly that intimidation is part of the sport's psychology. He averages a double-double for 5 consecutive seasons and anchors a defense that holds opponents to under 100 points per game in 3 straight playoff runs. The league introduces stricter flagrant foul penalties, partly in response to the Pistons' tactics, a rule change he considers a sign of weakness inside the locker room. Teammates respect his discipline. He never misses more than 4 games in a season across a decade. His rivalry with players like Bird, Parrish, and Jordan becomes cultural shorthand for 1980s NBA toughness. When Laimbeer retires in 1993, fans assume his confrontational persona will fade, but it evolves instead. He becomes a WNBA head coach in 2002, leading the Detroit Shock to 3 championships and earning Coach of the Year twice. His coaching success reframes his legacy not as a bully, but as a strategist who understood how to weaponize emotion and control. Over time, even critics acknowledge the league has softened without players like him. Laimbeer's unapologetic intensity set a standard for mental warfare, bridging the old-school brutality of the 1980s to the era of refined professionalism that follows. Kevin Durant's decision on July 4, 2016, to sign with the 73-9 Golden State Warriors reshapes modern player movement and ignites one of the NBA's loudest cultural backlashes. At 27 years old, the sixth forward leaves Oklahoma City after 8 seasons, joining a team that had just eliminated him in the Western Conference Finals. Fans label him a snake, interpreting the move as a shortcut to a title rather than a competitive challenge. Jerseys are burned in Oklahoma, and online sentiment shifts sharply against him. His approval rating among fans drops by more than half in a single offseason. Durant insists it's about basketball purity, not optics. On the court, the decision produces results that statistics can't deny. Durant averages 35.2 points per game in the 2017 Finals, shooting 55.6% from the field and 47% from 3, earning Finals MVP in back-to-back seasons. His defense peaks as well, ranking among the league's top 5 in defensive rating for the first time in his career. The Warriors' offensive efficiency hits 115.6 points per 100 possessions, the highest of the decade. His critics remain loud, but his performance shifts the debate from whether he could win to whether winning that much could ever satisfy him. Then, in June 2019, an Achilles tear in Game 5 of the Finals halts everything. Durant's injury earns a new kind of respect players, and fans witness his willingness to risk long-term health to compete. After a 550-day recovery, he returns in December 2020 with Brooklyn and averages 29.9 points, proving that skill and discipline can outlast injury and public scorn. By 2022, his consistency restores his standing among active players. Only LeBron James has more total points. The boos fade, replaced by reluctant admiration. Durant's legacy stabilizes not on loyalty or perception, but on output. The league may move on, but the numbers never lie. Marcus Smart. In 2014, Marcus Smart enters the league as the 6th overall pick by Boston, but his early seasons become defined more by theatrics than production. His reputation as a flopper grows after repeated fines for exaggerating contact, and referees begin to anticipate his falls before they occur. By his 3rd season, Smart's field goal percentage sits below 37%, fueling criticism that his intensity masks inefficiency. Yet, beneath the chaos, his defensive tracking data tells a different story. Boston allows nearly 7 fewer points per 100 possessions when he is on the floor. The numbers, not the noise, start to redefine him. Smart's defensive commitment peaks in 2022 when he becomes the first guard since Gary Payton in 1996 to win the NBA Defensive Player of the Year award. His 1.7 steals per game rank among the league's best, but it has his ability to switch across all 5 positions that anchors Boston's top-rated defense. Teammates describe him as the heartbeat of the roster, and his voice in huddles often dictates pace and focus. The Celtics reached the finals that season, and even in defeat, Smart's leadership becomes central to Boston's resurgence. His contributions can finally be measured not just in stats, but in standards. By 2023, Smart's identity fully merges with Boston's own unpolished, relentless, and unapologetically tough. Fans who once mocked his flopping now celebrate his dives into the scorer's table and his full-court chases. The green hair becomes symbolic, not of showmanship, but a commitment to the franchise and its defensive tradition. When he's traded in 2024, tributes pour in from teammates and rivals alike, acknowledging the cultural weight of his presence. Smart's journey from flopper to franchise cornerstone demonstrates how perception bends. when effort never does. In the 2006 NBA Finals, Dwayne Wade averages 30.7 points per game and attempts 97 free throws across 6 contests, the most by any player in finals history. Miami rallies from a 0-2 deficit to win its first championship, but the officiating controversy dominates headlines. Dallas fans argue the calls are biased, pointing to Game 5, where Wade shoots 25 free throws more than the entire Mavericks roster. The criticism, though loud, doesn't shake Wade's trajectory. At just 24, he becomes the youngest Finals MVP since Magic Johnson. The label of manufactured star follows him briefly, but the work behind the numbers endures. Over the next decade, Wade transitions from explosive scorer to measured leader. He earns 13 All-Star selections, 3 titles, and 5 All-NBA nods, anchoring Miami's culture through every era. When LeBron James and Chris Bosh arrive in 2010, Wade steps back statistically, his scoring drops from 26.6 to 20.1 points, but his willingness to sacrifice defines the Heat as for consecutive finals runs. His leadership becomes a template for coexistence among superstars, and by 2014, even rivals cite him as the league's model of professionalism. As retirement nears, Wade's image completes its reversal. The same player once accused of benefiting from favoritism becomes the embodiment of integrity and mentorship. His final season is marked by nightly jersey swaps. Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and even Dirk Nowitzki line up to trade uniforms with him. When Wade exits the court for the last time in 2019, boos are long gone, replaced by standing ovations. The man once cast as the 2006 Finals villain leaves as one of the game's most universally respected figures. Stephen Marbury's NBA story begins as a prodigy and unravels as a pariah. Drafted 4th overall in 1996, he averages 23 points and 8 assists by his 3rd season, yet clashes with teammates and coaches define his image more than his numbers. His feud with the Knicks organization in the late 2000s, public arguments, benchings, and buyout cements his reputation as the league's most toxic star. By 2009, at age 32, he is out of the NBA entirely, labeled uncoachable and self-destructive. For most players, that would be the ending. Instead, it becomes the beginning of one of basketball's most improbable reinventions. Marbury signs with the Shanxi Jiangsu Brave Dragons of the Chinese Basketball Association in 2010, then joins the Beijing Ducks a year later. There, his leadership and playmaking reshape both his career and his character. He leads Beijing to 3 CBA championships between 2012 and 2015, wins league MVP, and earns a statue outside the Wuxang Arena, level of adoration few foreign players have ever reached. Chinese fans rename him Ma Buli, a folk hero known for his tears after victories and his humility off the court. Marbury uses his earnings to give back, donating millions through his Starbury Foundation and building schools in Beijing. The man once accused of selfishness now spends his time mentoring youth players and promoting affordable sneakers. In 2017, the Beijing city government awards him a permanent residency permit for his cultural impact. His story closes not in Madison Square Garden, but in Beijing, proof that redemption in basketball doesn't always require a return to the NBA. The league that rejected him fades from memory. The nation that embraced him builds his legacy in bronze. Final beat. Legacy. The NBA's evolution depends on redemption arcs as much as championships. Every decade produces its draft day disappointments, players written off before their prime, their contracts labeled as wasted potential. Yet history repeatedly converts those same names into symbols of persistence, discipline, and recalibration. When Quayne Brown turns criticism into mentorship, or when Chauncey Billups becomes Finals MVP after being traded 5 times, the league's narrative expands. Failure, once quantified in shooting percentages or turnovers, becomes context rather than destiny. In sports memory, nothing stays fixed forever. Every boo is a setup for applause because the NBA is built on transformation. The same crowd that mocks a player's draft night stumble will rise when he lifts a trophy years later. Those reversals fuel the league's emotional economy. Fans invest not only in greatness, but in recovery. Analysts track shooting splits, audiences track redemption. Hate fades, but the footage remains, replayed until it becomes inspiration rather than mockery. The arc from bust to superstar isn't just personal, it's structural, ensuring that each season the league renews its faith in second chances. Legacy in the NBA, therefore, is not only measured in rings or MVPs, But in resilience, the player once dismissed becomes the data point that challenges how potential is defined. By rewriting their reputations, these athletes expand what success can mean in a system driven by numbers and narratives alike. The league thrives because it remembers its mistakes and rewards those who outlast them. Hate fades. Stories don't end. That is what keeps basketball immortal.